Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to the architecture of Cyberpunk 2077. Actually, before we continue, let me skip time to the morning so we have more daylight. Alright, so in this video, we're going to look at the district of Kabuki, right next to Little China. Oh no. So Kabuki is a classical form of Japanese theater, right? Kabuki theater. So, a few things we want to talk about. In the game, the Chinese and the Japanese work fairly close together, right? So back in the 70s, it was assumed that, the East Asian powers would just work together because why not? And so the Chinese developed slightly slower than Japan, so Japan is the bigger brother here. But the Chinese, when they came to Night City, they basically went to where the Japanese already were. So we have Japantown across the river there in the background, and then we have Kabuki here, which is a bit of an extension of Japantown. And then over on this side we have Little China. So China and Japan right next to each other. And in the game, the Tiger Claws gang is Japanese and Chinese criminals working together. So the Chinese and Japanese in this setting, really good friends apparently. So that's why the two districts are so close to each other. And in fact, according to the story, a lot of, it's called Kabuki, but it's been taken over by the Chinese. So there's more Chinese in Kabuki than there are Japanese now. That's just how the city evolved. So that's in the game. In the real world, Kabuki theater is a form of theater that originally was associated with the lower classes. And in fact, the original Kabuki theater, when it was first invented, they set up a temporary stage on the dry riverbed during the dry season, and they would perform plays for the commoners. So it's like a lower class form of entertainment. And in fact, as we look around Kabuki, it does go down to the riverside, and so the association there is quite obvious. It's how it's, the working classes, because they're poor, and also the prostitutes, because they're poor, they get pushed to the less favorable land, and usually that means like land by the river where it can get flooded very easily, like marshy land that's kind of soft and not very good to build on, and where there's insects and diseases. So the poor people, they get pushed to the parts of the city that are less good for living in. And that's, in the real world, is like that, and in the game it's also like that. The Kabuki district is a marginal area by the riverside, but we'll see that later on. Okay, so that's the word Kabuki and what it means, right? So starting off, we're gonna start off on this side and walk down this street and look at the outside of Kabuki. So this is basically the land side. We have older buildings to start off with. Smaller older buildings compared to that, more modern stuff compared to the shiny towers back there. So already we can see that it's just like an older district with poorer people, except that thing there.
Distract me.
There's a new building going up there though, so it's not completely old. So there are some new buildings going up, but for the most part the buildings are old. On this corner here we have Lizzie's bar. Lizzie's bar, there it is. It is a important story location. Let's try not to get run over. So back here, there's Lizzie's bar. It appears to be an old industrial building. Oh, it's closed because it's daytime.
We're closed right now.
You sure are. Alright, so it's an old industrial building that they've turned into a brain dance bar. Brain dance is a form of entertainment where it's like virtual reality, except it plugs into your brain. So it's a more complete, I'm just gonna pass time until it's open, a more complete form of virtual reality where you can experience things. And in Lizzie's bar, the things you experience usually involves porn. So it's a pornography entertainment, which actually fits well into the overall theme of Kabuki, which is... Oh, are you still closed? Which is a red light district. According to the game, Kabuki is a red light district, right? Alright, so we're gonna wait for nighttime, I guess. Does it not reset? Alright, technically nighttime. 6 PM. So we can see bright neon lights, right? Bright pink neon lights.
There a problem?
No. Is there architecture coming in here?
What a sweet little face you have.
Bright lights, shiny surfaces. What is that texture on that couch? Alright, so the decor looks like that. And then inside we have the neon pink and pastel blue and people dancing awkwardly. Right, so it's a club, basically. There's a bar back there. Got alcohol, got break dancers, so they're enjoying their break dances. As I said, a form of virtual reality experience. And that's pretty much the club. There's not too much to say about it. Except interesting art on the walls. Interesting choice of wallpaper. This is a throwback to pre-industrial Art Nouveau styles. Going upstairs, pretty much the same thing.
There's that cream place. We went there yesterday.
The DJ back there, look at that guy. Or that lady. So that's the monks, and the monks are the gang. So these people are the monks. They are a gang of ex-prostitutes and maybe current prostitutes as well. They formed the gang to protect each other from people who want to exploit them.
Going in or staying out?
Staying out. And this is their bar, right? Right. It's an important story location. It's very neon. The colors. So, 70s futurism. Okay, so moving down this street. I should go to the other side of the road so we can see the I almost dodged it. So we can see the building facades. Excuse me? Alright, don't get run over again. As we step towards the south, the building starts getting a bit taller. Generally, no corpo influence in Kabuki, because Kabuki is just too poor. Just too poor for the corpos to really care about. Although this apartment has some trees on the roof, that's kind of nice. Like, it's not bad. The style is a little bit older. Not as modern as the stuff across the street. It's not horrible. Kabuki, it's not horrible. Well, this is not horrible. It gets horrible later on. Let me just run past this real quick. Yeah. Alright, and then as we get further south, oh, there you go, there's some corpo stuff building over the top of existing buildings. So there is some big corpo influence in Kabuki as we get towards the southern end. It doesn't quite escape, but this is not Kabuki proper, right? This is like the very edge of Kabuki, right next to the city center. It's not even the real thing, it doesn't count. What's going on here is a very black and windowless building. That's interesting. No idea what could be inside. So windowless buildings, sometimes it could be like a movie theater, which wouldn't have windows. Not sure what that is though. What's going on here? It looks like there's like a building there, and then extra floors haphazardly stacked up on top, and then more extra floors on top of that. And there's a bit of a glass tower down here. This might be newer stuff as we get to the southern end of Kabuki, towards the city center. Yeah, no, these look like corporation buildings, big megacorp buildings. Maybe like this is where, like from this point on, those are the rich people buildings, and that's leading over the top of that, and then those are older buildings over there, probably. You can kind of see the difference in style, right? Like the big glass facade, and then the much smaller windows. Big glass facades are expensive. Big pieces of glass are more expensive, and also like they're less energy efficient because the glass is not very good at retaining heat or keeping the heat out, so you need like more heating and more air conditioning to make a big glass building work like this. So you spend more money on energy trying to keep this thing air conditioned in the summer and heated in winter. And it's not the sort of thing that you would want to have to pay for if you're poor, right? Alright, let's keep going. As we make our way, I should cross the street now. So we are pretty much at the southern end of Kabuki. We're gonna turn towards the east and step towards the riverside. So Kabuki is a long, narrow district. I should show you actually. So Kabuki looks like that. Yeah, that makes more sense. Let me just show you this. So this is Kabuki. It's a long, narrow district by the river. So the river's there. So it's like squeezed by the river. So that's Kabuki. It's a riverside area. If we make our way back here and then make our way behind the buildings away from the main streets. Once you get back here, what are these guys doing? Sleeping rough? And, well, that's not great, is it? What's going on here? What is this even? Oh, like a sign has fallen over? And this is, what's going on here? It's not very well maintained, is it? Broken vending machines and a homeless camp. So we talked about how Kabuki is poor. It's a lower class district and a lot of poor people. So this is the real Kabuki, right? So all the stuff on the street, that's not really Kabuki. Once you get off the street and into the district, it's more like this. Right? People living under the bridge because they have nowhere else to go. Back here, we do have a highway. Look at this. This is interesting. So the highway is not actually attached to... So the highway's been added on. This was the edge of the district, and they needed an extra road, so they added an extra road on the edge. And we can go underneath this actually. Let me just keep moving forward. So, oh, there it is. You can go down here. So the highway looks like it's a later addition, right? Like this used to be the waterfront, and then they just flipped on the road, like they put in supports here, and they just kind of put the road on top of that because they needed an extra road, and you'll see why they need an extra road later on when we walk back towards the north. So they added an extra road going that way, turning around and then joining back into the city there. And this used to be a nice waterfront area where you can get on a boat. I don't think any boats actually run in the city anymore. Everybody either drives or they fly around in their flying cars. So this is like a throwback to an earlier time when people still used boats. At least in this part of the city. There are boats, but they're not. They're for recreation. And nobody uses this area anymore. There's Japantown over there. And let me just step out here, look at Kabuki from the riverside. Right, if I come over here, step back. So there's, you know, Upper Kabuki up there, let's call it that. Upper Kabuki up there. And then over there's the Lower Kabuki, look at that. So, most of Night City is actually raised up off the river quite a bit. You see that? And there's like, can I point to it? Let me just get a gun. So like, from the water up to there's a big foundation, right? And then the city is above. And if you look over there, can you see it? Maybe you can. Well, maybe less so on that side. But here, that's much closer to the water. Remember how I talked about Kabuki Theater being on the dry riverbed during the dry season, and how, you know, the poor people, they don't really have anywhere else to go, so they live right next to the water. That's what Lower Kabuki is. So Upper Kabuki and Lower Kabuki are two different places. We have taller towers up there, richer people up there, or probably just middle class people up there, and then poor people down here. Let's go back up there first. Yeah. Okay, going up these stairs. So these buildings, I mean, this is basically the same as Little China, right? And here, this is interesting. There's like a frame. There's like structure on the outside of this building, and then there's stuff sticking out there. But that stuff is not new, that stuff is also old. So I think what it means is that this overhanging thing, buildings on top of other buildings, I think the suggestion is that it's been going on for a long time. Because that basically looks like the same style, right? That's the same style as that. So like an additional piece has been added onto this building, and they put in this stuff to hold it up. But it's not new, it's not a new edition, it's an old edition, is what it looks like. So, like, this happens a lot in Night City apparently, and it's been going on for a long time. Alright, look at that, we have a little gates there. The gate marks the entrance to Lower Kabuki. Before I go down though, can I get across without getting run over? Can we run this way for a little bit? I just want to show you this part. So here, there's buildings up there, and then this road goes underneath the ground level above, which is kind of complex, isn't it? So look at that there. So there's a road here. This is the original edge of the river. Because if you look across the river, this is the same height as Japantown on the other side. So originally, that down there was the river. But now they've built everything in the river. So this used to be the edge of the district. And then at the edge of the district, so all these buildings up on this side, on the original part of the district, is normal. These are normal houses. And then those really are not. We'll go down there soon. And this road goes... don't get run over. This road goes underneath this raised terrace here. And the raised terrace... There's a residential walkway, a pedestrian walkway, up here to access these residential buildings. Look at that. So, we see the layering once again. And I guess the idea is that, you know, they had this much space for the road, so but then they needed space for pedestrians and cars, and since they need to fit more cars in, so they made the car bit wider and then just raised the pedestrians up. So now you have space for pedestrians above and space for cars below. And they couldn't put that side by, like normally the road would have pedestrians and cars side by side. But since they don't have enough space, they have to stack them vertically, right? A hotel here apparently. Okay, let's get back down.
You there? Yes, I'm talking to you. Are you getting what you want out of life? Let me guess. Food for my
And you can see how these buildings overhang the road as well. So like everybody's leaning over, leaning out to try and get as much real estate in here as possible, right? So there's the road. There's pedestrians up there. No pedestrian access down here, not really. Not enough space. And this was... Hold on, where was I? So let me just try to find... You remember the highway that they... Not the highway. The overpass that they put over the waterside area. Where did that road go? Was it this road? Yes, I think. This part here, right? Yeah, so this part is additional as well. Used to be the street came down here and turned that way, and they added an extra bit here to bypass on the outside of where the edge of the district used to be. It's very complicated, right? So the district, you know, it was overcrowded, I guess. The district became overcrowded, and so they had to like try and squeeze more and more space, or try and squeeze more and more stuff into the space, and eventually it spilled out into the lower riverside. Okay, let's go down to the lower Kabuki and look closely at what that is. The entry to Kabuki proper is marked by these gates. You see these sometimes in Chinatowns in the United States. I guess other places too. Also in the United States. It's partly a tourism thing, but partly it's, you know, cultural pride, right? You're marking out your territory of Chinatown. Chinatowns, maybe I should talk about that. Especially in the United States, where the cultures remain very distinct because, you know, they don't always play well with each other, to put it mildly. And so, in a Chinatown, where a lot of Chinese people gather together, it becomes less accessible to people who don't speak Chinese, right? You kind of stick out and you don't belong, and the local culture is kind of obscure to you. And in fact, in a lot of these cultural enclaves, I guess we'll call them, ethnic enclaves maybe, like, you know, Little Italy. If you've seen the movie Godfather, The Godfather talks about Little Italy, or Italian Americans. And like the story is, or part of the story is like, why do these organized crime groups exist? It's because they don't trust the police. Like, they go to the police don't really help them because, I don't know, racism or something. And there's like, you know, cultural insensitivity and all that. And so, you know, if you're in Chinatown and you have a problem with another Chinese guy, would you go to a white police officer or even a black police officer who isn't Chinese, and they don't know what's going on? So who do you turn to resolve problems in Chinatown? You go to the local people, and by local people I mean the local triads, the local, you know, criminal gangs. Like, they know the local people, they have influence in the local area, and if you have problems, they can solve your problems for you for a price. And that happens, like, not just in Chinatown, but in every ethnic enclave. It's a bit of a problem if you don't trust the police because, you know, like, criminals get away. But yeah. So because the cultural, like, it's so monolithic within the Chinatown, it becomes like a separate place with a separate like separate services, a separate government even, you might say. If you consider the triads to be like a shadow government where they take taxes, protection money, like they take taxes and then they provide protection, they provide security services, and they might even provide social services with the money they take from you. It's like a shadow government. Anyway, that's kind of complex. But anyway, a gate like that, sometimes it's like a marker for this sort of thing. It can become a marker for like triad territory, because triad territory is synonymous with the Chinatown, right? And so it's not always a positive thing. Is what I'm trying to say. Like you see a gate like that and say, oh hey, the local Chinese people have pride in their culture. How nice. Yes, but not always. I mean, yes, but also you gotta understand, like not everything is always nice, right? So part of that culture, part of that local culture is triads and criminal groups, and it's the same with every culture. Like I said, if you have a group of Italians, you're gonna have the mafia. If you have a bunch of Japanese, you might have Yakuza. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. So here, this is, like, the gate marks the entrance to Kabuki, and when we get down here, apparently a lot of Chinese and Japanese people are down here. Now, we want to jump down here. So this is basically the river, but not really. So this is like swampy ground, close to the river. We are basically at water level, but the sediment has piled up, and so like it's swampland. It's it's kind of muddy ground. And going back to what I was saying earlier, if you live in a big city and you're poor, you don't have any money, you can't afford to buy a fancy house in a nice part of town, you end up being pushed to the worst part of towns, the worst part of the town, because that's the only place you can afford. And so that would be the swampy ground next to the river. The problem with this is, because the ground is soft, any houses you build is liable to sink into the ground, because the ground is not that solid. And because you're close to the river, you're down low, if the river ever floods, you're gonna get flooded first. Right? That's why the poor people are there. Like, that's why that's the less favorable part of the city, is because it's the more dangerous part of the city and more difficult to live on, right? Like, any rubbish will flow downwards into the swamp where you are. Any flooding will flood you first, and so on and so on. So it's not a nice place to live, but if you're poor, then you don't really have many options. And that's the part of the city where we are. We do see this though, so they've done some things to reinforce the foundations down here to make this place a little bit more solid. You can see this concrete wall here, so they've kind of packed up the foundations a bit so the buildings don't all sink into the mud too much. But it's much lower than this other stuff above us. So that's Upper Kabuki up there, which is like the proper part of the city. And then we're like in a ditch by the riverside, where this stuff is. And you'll notice that the buildings down here, not only are they older and more run down, they're not as tall as well. There's like 3 or 4 stories tall. 4 stories tall, and that's it. And that's quite possibly because the ground is soft. Right? Because the ground is soft, if you put a big heavy building on it, it will literally sink into the mud. And so there's only so much weight you can put on the mud without it sinking. So you can only put 4 stories without it sinking, right? So like the ground is too soft to support big buildings, so all the buildings over here are small. Oh hey, it's raining. That's nice. Appropriate for this place. So we have this, and then we have alleyways, and also like I mean, it's not really a shantytown. It's not quite a slum. It's not quite as bad as a slum. Not quite as bad as a shantytown. But in a part of the city where maybe the local city government don't care too much, and there's not much town planning involved in establishing this district, then you're gonna get narrow, winding streets, because if the lack of planning means that people just build wherever, right? And so the streets are a bit haphazard, and you get like alleyways like this. where nobody really thought about this, and so they didn't leave enough space for cars, and they didn't leave enough space for sidewalks. It just happens to be the space that's left behind when people just build all their buildings everywhere, right? So this happens in slums and shantytowns a lot, is the makeshift or the improvised street pattern, where nobody really planned for this to happen.
You're about to know my wrath.
And in a lot of ways it's quite interesting because it's organic, right? Like it emerges out of the collective decisions of the local people. And so it really reflects the character of the local people. These streets, like the people live here, they have shops here. In some ways it's a very interesting kind of urbanism. This organic stuff that just emerges when you let people make their own decisions. I want to go back that way. Over there's a bit of an industrial thing, a warehouse. I don't think it's worthwhile looking at that too closely. It's a warehouse, I think, and offices maybe. Still only 5 stories, 6 stories at most. Alright, let's continue going towards the river. Oh, this is interesting. We have vaguely Japanese.
Game is more stressful than life itself.
These buildings. Very cool. Vernacular. Vernacular is what we call things that aren't designed by experts. Things that are designed by common people for common people. Interesting. There's not too much. I guess it's concrete. Alright, so we get all the way to the riverside, and you can see how, like, what I said about marginal swampland, like, it's kind of land, but kind of not. And in fact, somebody has built another bit of concrete out there, and you see how, like, the sediment has collected here, and maybe someone's gonna think about building a building here, like expanding the city a bit more and putting another 4-story building here maybe at some point. Can I jump down there just to see how bad it is? So let me just take a look around. What's that? What are these? I think it is concrete. It's too bad that we don't see anything under construction, although I guess there's not enough space for anything new. If we see like something under construction, we can learn more about how these things are built. I think it's just concrete. So concrete, especially relatively low-rise concrete buildings, you can do it with very little equipment. You can just mix concrete on the ground. So you can build a concrete building with just a few guys, a few wheelbarrows and a few shovels. And just, you know, get bags of concrete, bags of aggregate, and just mix it up yourself. So, like, building a modest concrete and brick building, or a concrete and concrete block building, you can do that with very little equipment. And so, a lot of slums or shanty towns would build that way. Like, you want something better than just sheet metal. But you can't afford, like, heavy equipment or anything like that. And so you end up making modest concrete buildings because you can do that by hand if you had to. Obviously it's easier with machines, but you could do it by hand if you had to. I'm just wondering, like, how they build this stuff. It does look like it's incrementally added on top of each other, like that. Oops, wrong button. Like that is different from that, and then that's different from this, and they're all stuck together. It looks like they incrementally added more and more floors over time, right? Oh hey guys, there's these monks too. paper lanterns and stone lanterns. Little bits of vaguely Chinese slash Japanese decorations. Okay, let me jump down here, inspect the swamp. Let's go down there. There's some gang members over there. Try not to get in trouble. So what is this stuff? Just mud, right? So they reinforced the foundations there. This is just mud. And what's going on beyond the mud? Look at that, somebody's putting a bit of concrete here. Interesting. Yeah, no, I think the plan is to just continue building more houses. So the river is here, right? Maybe I should try and stop the rain. So rivers collect sediment, right? As the water flows down, it brings sediment. Let me just try and get a nicer weather. And when the water slows down in a bend in the river, the sediment will pile up. And so like this bend in the river here, I guess is where the sediment keeps piling up. And eventually over time it creates more land as the sediment piles up, and then you can build more houses on it. And so you just get more and more land over time for free. Except when you start blocking the river, right? So as the sediment keeps piling up, eventually if you block too much of the river, the water starts backing up and then you start flooding the whole place. So there's some problems with that if you keep doing it. But yeah, you can see how there's just sediment collecting on this side, and they just turned it into a whole district by putting buildings on it. Let's jump up here.
Yes, I'm talking to you.
Alright, let's continue down this way.
What you want out of life? Let me guess. Food from a tube.
You notice there's no traffic, there's no car traffic down here. Because the roads were never designed for cars, right?
Far behind when you begin your journey to the final frontier. Send the word space.
Let me come back here. Come back to the road. Oh, look at all this stuff. We're putting stairs and walkways. Oh yeah, look at this. In fact, what's going on down here? What is going on down here? Is that what... Okay, so maybe there used to be another floor down here, because this is the river bed. Maybe they just used to build directly here, or maybe the building is just sunk into the mud, that's also possible. And then to reinforce the foundations, I guess then they built this, which then buried the bottom floor and turned it into a basement. Is that what happened? Because like, what's this? What happened here? No, that's what happened, right? So the building sunk into the mud, and so to stop the buildings from sinking, they reinforced the floors, and they filled all that in, and then they turned this floor into a basement, I think. It's very haphazard. It's an incredibly unsafe way of making architecture, but also extremely interesting. I think that's what happened? So this used to be a 3-story building. I mean, it still is, it's just that one part is under the ground now. Very cool, right? I was gonna go back to the road. So this is a bit curious. There are roads up here, slightly better infrastructure here, but they might have like demolished some buildings to put the road in. So okay, so like you have a slum or a shantytown, what do you do about it? There are two basic ways of dealing with a slum, right? Either you demolish the whole thing and build a proper city. But the issue is if you demolish the whole slum, all of a sudden you have a whole lot of homeless people now, who used to live in the slum, but now you just demolish their houses. Now what do you do with them? And when you demolish people's houses, they lose their jobs, they have to move somewhere else, right? Like they lose contact with all their friends because they all separate and move to different parts of the city. And it's possible that they end up a lot worse than before, right? If they had a place to live and if they had a job, and then they have to get up and move because you demolish their houses, they might not find another job. They might just become unemployed then, and they'd be much worse off than before. So, like, you think you're clearing the slum and building better houses and that improves the city, but what you end up doing is you end up ruining a lot of people's lives if you demolish their houses. So it's not a great way of dealing with slums, and by slums I mean basically unsafe housing. Like, it's too crowded, there's not enough services, maybe there's no running water, no sewage, not enough roads, it's a fire hazard, it's a flood hazard. So slums are just, houses that are not great. But to fix things, if you demolish it all, it might make things worse. So then the other way, if you don't demolish everything, then you make incremental changes to the neighborhood to try to fix things. So maybe instead of demolishing the whole thing, you demolish a few houses and you put a road in. Or in this case, I think what happened is that was the slum there, and then they reinforced the foundations, and then they, reinforced a bit more space, and then they put the road here, right? So this was the old slum. Maybe they removed some houses to put crossroads in, and then they put an extra road in here. Great. And then the slum kept growing in that direction, and they haven't put in an extra road there yet, right? So the slum keeps growing and growing and growing into the river, and you should kind of put roads in every now and then. Is what it looks like this is. But the problem with like adding infrastructure, like some things you can add quite easily. Electricity, telephones, like cables you can run on poles and just have power poles and bring electricity in overhead. So electricity you can bring into a slum fairly easily. Water pipes a little bit more difficult. Sewage pipes are super difficult. The sewage pipes often are buried in the ground. And so you have to like dig the ground up, and if you have to put pipes underneath people's houses because if they have toilets inside their house, like how do you put a pipe in under the house without demolishing the house? You have to like dig under their house. How do you do that? So like some services are easy to put in, like electricity. Roads, you might have to demolish some buildings. Sewage, I don't even know how you put sewage into a slum if they didn't have it before. So like some things are easier to do than others. But generally it's not, it's just a big problem how to deal with a part of the city that is like unsafe for living in, and you try to make it safe to live in without having to demolish the whole thing and make a lot of people homeless, right? So this looks like an incremental attempt to try to turn slums into livable parts of the city. And you can see like stages of it, right? If you come over this way, so that's like Upper Kabuki there, and then at the edge of Upper Kabuki they added a road. Alright, good. And then after that more houses got built on the riverbed, and then they had to put more roads in, reinforce the foundations on the riverbed, put a road in here. Alright, good, so they fixed that part, and then the slum continued growing into the new riverbed over here. And so now here they don't have roads here yet, but eventually I guess they would build a road on the other side of this. Maybe, like if out here. Imagine if they, reinforce the foundations out here, put a road out here, then now there's a road here, and then they just keep building over that way, right? So this is like a progressive expansion of Kabuki into the river. And honestly, it's not great. Like you don't. Eventually, you're gonna block the river. You can't do that. You can't block the river. So this can't go on forever. But who knows, right? Who knows what's gonna happen next? All right. Let's keep moving north. What's going on here? Oh right. So highways above. So these big roads, they just go over Kabuki. They don't join Kabuki in any way, they just bypass it above. And that happens a lot with slums. Because people just don't want to deal with it. Like I want to get to the other side, I don't want to go inside. I want to go to the other side. So they just bridge across it, so they don't have to interact with the slum, right? The rich people and people who don't like to be in these alleyways. They just bridge over it. Look at this though, isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? And then these roads just bypassing the whole thing because they don't want to deal with it. Alright. Coming out here? What's going on here? The river goes into there a little bit. I don't think it goes much further than that. But you can see we're quite low down, right? Compared to that area there, that area there. Like usually when the city is that high up above the water, somebody has done some calculations and said that to protect the city from flooding, we need this much. Right, we need to raise the city this much. And so this part here, I feel like this is extremely vulnerable to flooding. No, like this is definitely vulnerable to flooding. So if it ever rains a lot, like a lot of people might die down here, I'm just saying. I don't want to get too morbid on you, but you know, if you live on marginal land near the river, that's what it means, like it's not safe. Alright, let's just check where that little bit of water goes. I have to go all the way back here. Yeah, this part is not even properly joined to the city. They have these makeshift bridges across what's supposed to be the riverbed. Let me run across here. Check where this is going. So this water just stops here. I don't know why there's a fan there, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, this doesn't go anywhere. So these are basically islands in the river, kind of. And there are water channels underneath. Not that they go anywhere. Okay, we're gonna go this way, along the riverside. That's interesting, very neon, very pink. But yeah, all the buildings down here are 2 or 3, at most 4 stories. Is it a staircase? I guess that goes up to the highway level. That staircase there. If we continue out this way, look at those over there. Can you see that? Let me get closer. Interesting. So there we have proper slums. Look at that. We have literal shacks, literal metal sheds right by the water. So this process of Kabuki gradually expanding onto marginal marshland by the water, it continues. We're not done. So here we have a bunch of makeshift structures literally on the beach. Oh, there's a bunch of criminals there. Let's try not to get into combat. Idiot. Look at these things. Corrugated metal. So this is very temporary. They do have glass windows, I guess. But yeah, so this is all temporary shacks. Well, it's supposed to be temporary, but maybe people live here for a long time. Because they have nowhere else to go, right? Improvised metal shacks right by the river, and you know if it ever floods, all these people are gonna die. Yeah, so this is Kabuki, the evolution of Kabuki. Like these, if like over time, you might imagine eventually people accumulate enough money to convert their sheet metal houses into maybe basic concrete houses. And then maybe over a few generations they get more money and they kind of fix the foundations a bit, maybe add another story. And then boom, next thing you know you have buildings that look like that over there. And then the city comes in, they reinforce the foundations, maybe put a road in, and then boom, you have buildings that are more like that. So like gradually over time, people, desperate people who have nowhere else to go, build up the parts of the city that are right by the river, and they turn it and they legitimize it into a proper part of the city as they build it up. Maybe, if they're lucky, if they don't get washed away by a big flood at some point. And that, I think, is basically the story of Kabuki. It's like a gradual expansion of the city into the river, as poor people, you know, end up here with nowhere else to go, and they build what they can, however they can, right? Okay, let's get back out to the road. I think I want to go that way. Let's go this way. You see how we start stepping up here? So we're stepping back up into the proper part of the city, away from this makeshift stuff by the waterside. I want to go this way, I think. A little bit lost, but I'm sure we'll make it. I mean, look at this. Yeah, so we're stepping up. Ah, wrong button.
How about a thank you? How about you fuck off?
Where did I want to go? Oh, hey, look. So this road, from here, it just goes over Lower Kabuki and does not even interact with Lower Kabuki in any way. Alright, so we're heading uphill, back towards more solid ground. The buildings are still only 3 stories here, though. But you know, up here it should be solid enough for taller buildings, and in fact, as we keep going up, we'll find taller buildings soon enough. Behind there, for example. So I want to get back to the main street. Down here or up here? I think up here? I might be completely wrong.
The game is more stressful than life itself.
Alright, so getting up to here. Over that way, it's the North Side Industrial District. Getting close. We don't want to go there yet. I think I want to go this way. Yeah, so the district transitions into the industrial area. Look at that smog over there. I think I want to go down there, actually. Am I lost? Yeah, big highways. So this looks more like Little China now. Where does that go? Does that go where we want to go? No. Maybe. Wait. Oh, there's an elevator. Really want to go down the elevator. I think this goes down to the Kabuki Market. Let's go forward. Let's go that way. This is a better way to go. Alright, as we head this way, we see a big gate again. That's definitely north side there. I think I went the long way, actually. Oh well, let me step through here between these buildings. Ah, so now we're here at the northern end we do have a market, and in fact we have the Kabuki Roundabout right here. So this is kind of special. There's a big roundabout, and then in the middle of the roundabout is a Chinese-style, vaguely pagoda-like building. Not really a pagoda, but like a layered building. So this is a bit of a landmark. It is circular. And the Kabuki Roundabout is basically a market. If you look down there, there's a whole lot of shops. So there's a lower level, a lot of shops. And then on this level, a whole lot of shops as well. And if I can find a staircase to go up.
Hey, here for a pickup. Order number 48.
There is a staircase somewhere. And you see the gates as well. So this is like a tourist attraction, I guess. And there's no reason why they have to build the building in this particular style, with the vaguely, vaguely Chinese curved roofs. But it's a landmark, right? Something the local people can be proud of. There's a staircase somewhere. I'm trying to find it. Okay, here, the arrow. There should be more staircases. Because if there's not enough staircases, the shops on the upper floors aren't gonna get enough pedestrian traffic. Oh hey, look at the round windows. Alright, this is the Kabuki Roundabout. I guess there's no shops on this level. So the buildings surrounding it are kind of bland. Right, those are unremarkable. Probably like old, cheap residential. And then there's a bunch of bridges, pedestrian bridges leading off of this thing. And that's pretty much the Kabuki Roundabout, right? I think there's like one shop up here. Anyway, let's get back down. I think the lower part is actually the more interesting stuff down there in that little alleyway market. Alright, back down. And let us continue going down. Down in here, River Market. And a whole lot of shops.
Tigers are coming today. For the rent. Just got a message.
What is this? Karaoke? Oh, strip club. Maybe a strip bar.
70% real blood dripping.
I mean, who even knows what these shops are, right? Alright, and that's pretty much Kabuki. Let me check my notes. Hold on, let me find somewhere nice. And then let me find my notes and see what I have to say about it. Right, there's the Kabuki Roundabout. So, no, I guess that's all. No, I said everything. Yeah, so the Kabuki, based on how we read the terrain and the buildings, it looks like it was originally just one street along the river. But as time went on, like it was one street along the river and it culminated at the roundabout. And this was like Kabuki. It was like one street and a roundabout, and that was the whole thing. But as time went on, people started building on the sediment that accumulated on the edge of the river. And those people probably would have been the poor people who had nowhere else to go. They couldn't afford any houses anywhere else. So they built their shacks and their shantytown on the riverside. And as they lived there for generation after generation, they gradually accumulated more buildings and more sturdy buildings. You know, like when they find enough money, they'll build a proper concrete building. And over time, the place built up into a more proper neighborhood. And then the city came in and put in a road, and then they built more stuff, and they put in another road, and they built more stuff because, you know, what else are they gonna do if they have nowhere else to go, right? Like they make the best of what they have, which is basically nothing, a swamp by the river. And eventually Kabuki evolved into what it is today through gradual growth and like gradual accumulation of a city by the poorest people in the city who could afford it the least. Like, you know, if you have a big corporation, you have billions of dollars, you would just build the whole thing, just build the foundation, build a tower, you boom, done. But when you're poor, when everybody's poor, you build a little bit at a time. And in a lot of Kabuki, we see evidence of a part of the city that's been added to a little bit at a time. You can see it. And that's the character of Kabuki. And the big corporations completely ignore this place. You'll notice that as we walk through here, there's no corporate presence. Like, it's all very modest, medium-rise building at most. I mean, there's some towers, but even that's not that grand, right? And I guess the reason the corpos ignore this is because they know this is not good land. It's vulnerable to flooding, and the ground probably is soft, and so if you put a big corporate tower here, it will just sink into the ground. Like, the foundations are bad. And so in a way, the poor quality of the land protects the locals from gentrification. Like, it protects them from the rich people coming in and displacing them, because the underlying ground is so poor that the rich people don't want to come here at all. And that allows the local character and the local neighborhood to preserve what it is and remain what it is. Not that it's necessarily a good thing that it remains what it is, because what it is poor, right? Like, is it good to stay poor? I don't know, but at least your community is intact, and that counts for something, I guess. In the story, in the world of Cyberpunk, there's the corpos, and then there are the people who hate the corpos, right? The rebels, I guess you call them, the edge runners. And this is a center for those people, because the corpos don't come in, and so all the hackers, the mercenaries, the freelancers, all these guys, they gather in Kabuki. And in fact, like there's a, what do they call it? A net running equipment store in the roundabout, and that's also part of the story. Not a big part, but basically all the misfits and all the rebels gather here because the corporations don't want to come here, and so those are the two competing powers in Night City. Alright, so let me find out where I'm going. I think I'm going that way. I'm going east. If we head east from the Kabuki Roundabout, just a little bit past the gates, which marks the boundaries of Kabuki, out there we have the North Side Industrial District. It's a district on the northern side of the city. That's why it's called the North Side Industrial District. Alright, see you next time in North Side.